So, welcome to the Women's Rights Network podcast with Mary Howden and Anna Wilson. We're delighted to have with us this evening Lisa Keogh. Now, those of you might be familiar with Lisa. She was a student at Abertay University who said some controversial things about women having vaginas, I believe, and was disciplined by the university as a consequence of that. So we're here to talk about that with her in terms of being, cancelled for having views that sex is biological sex is a fact and that there are differences between men and women. But first of all, I was reading your biography, Lisa, and I noticed that you trained as a mechanic back when you left school. And I thought, what an interesting thing to be trained as at the time, particularly when you're 18, and that probably must have been quite challenging.
I wouldn't say it was challenging in some ways, but other ways it wasn't. I always had an interest in cars. I was never what was known as a girly girl. I didn't go about wearing dresses. I was a bit of a tomboy. I was always out with boys on the street on the BMXs. I was the only girl actually that lived on the street. That's possibly why. And then obviously they were a bit older than me. They started getting cars. I took an interest in cars from quite a young age. I remember when I was 7, 8 or something like that, my nan had a car on the driveway and I pulled her wheel trims off. I went inside and I said, "Oh, Nana, your wheel trims have fell off the car. Do you want me to go fix them for you?" So it's always kind of been there, that sort of want to know about cars. So yeah, for me, it was just natural progression. And I enjoyed it. Obviously, working with all men, you come across comments and whatnot, but generally it's banter. I had a really good time working in the garage, and I'm obviously a fully qualified mechanic now. But I got a really bad knee injury, which meant my mechanic days were sort of over. I couldn't really kneel down anymore. I had to get essentially most of the cartilage, well, all the cartilage and ligaments and stuff taken out of one of my knees. So it just wasn't feasible anymore. And then I went on to have the children, and my partner had said to me, "Well, why don't you go and educate yourself, go to university and do something that you want to do?" So I did. I started doing forensic psychobiology and then did a transfer to law with the sort of want to go into criminal law as a as a defence lawyer and see what went from there. But obviously the law stuff didn't really kick off. See how the mechanics did. But yeah, I enjoyed being a mechanic. It was good.
It's just, that's just an aside, really. I just thought it was quite an interesting thing for an 18-year-old to be kind of doing, really, in some respects.
I started working on cars when I was 14. I stayed in Edinburgh and there was a garage down the road and I would go in and I'd work there at the weekends as well, sort of learn how to do bits and bobs.
It's a good skill to have, right enough. Absolutely. So you decided to go and do law. I'm assuming your course was trucking along quite nicely for you. So tell us what happened.
So we were in the midst of the pandemic and the classes had gone online. And I truly believe if these classes had been face-to-face, the things that were said to me in the classes, some of which I can't speak about, but I do believe a lot of what happened in those classes wouldn't have happened. Certain things you just don't say to people's face, and it's the sort of keyboard warrior mentality. But we were talking about equal rights and between men and women, and I made a comment along the lines of, I believe in equal rights, but you can't expect the same outcome. It's not going to be an equal outcome because men and women are different. I used my own experiences to contrast on what I was saying, i.e. being a mechanic and whatnot, at which point I was asked to define a woman. And it was the lecturer. She said to me, "Oh, how would you define a woman, Lisa?" And I just had no idea what she was talking about. I didn't know about any of this ideology stuff. So for me, it was just simple. I just looked myself down and went, well, a woman is someone with a vagina and the ability to reproduce. And then everybody just went crazy. And I didn't know why. So I thought, right, okay, well, it was a Teams call. So you've got the little chat function. So I typed in what I'd said, and they still just, they were all going mental. So I put in capital letters this time, and I'm like, a biological woman is somebody with the ability to reproduce who has a vagina, or has a vagina with the ability to reproduce. And they're like, oh, you're a transphobe, you're a typical cis white girl. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I'm Googling while they're calling me names to find out what I'm getting called. I just had no idea. And I suppose at that point, I'd put the target on my back, because the following weeks, they seemed to ask me questions or say things to seem to try and get a reaction out of me. Like they said, all men were rapists and we should lock all men up after 6 o'clock at night. To which point I was like, well, why would you do that? Not all men are rapists. You can't just go locking men up at 6 o'clock at night because like a percentage of men rape. No, all men are rapists. And I'm like, no, all men have got the ability to rape because all men have got male genitals, and you can only rape. The definition of rape is penile penetration. So you can only rape if you're male. I said, but not all men are rapists. At which point I was called a rape apologist. And then we went on to...
Was that students, the staff were not doing anything, they were just standing by?
Yeah, pretty much. And then we went on, I said men were stronger than women, and again used my own experiences to explain why. And then I tried to prove my point. So my children do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA and things like that. So I know a wee bit about that. And I knew of a transgender athlete, Fallon Fox, who is a lovely fellow. I knew that he had got in the ring with a woman, and I knew he was male. So I looked for the article where it described what happened, and he was fighting against a black woman. The reason I state she's black is because, generally speaking, black people have got denser bones than white people through biology. And Fallon Fox fractured her skull in 37 seconds. So essentially, you've got like a man, 32-year-old man that's went through male puberty, smashing this woman about a ring, to the point he was able to fracture her bones when she should have technically had stronger bones than your average white lady. So I brought this up, I sent in the article to them, and I got muted. I wasn't able to take part in the class anymore. And then April came along, and I got the email from the university saying that I had said offensive comments during class discussions. And I had no idea. Like, I was just sitting there, and at first I read the email, and, you know, you like, oh, this is just nonsense. So I like put my phone down. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. It's just nonsense. Then obviously as the night went on, I'm like, I better go and reread that email. And they actually wanted me to go to like an interview to explain myself. To which point I'd obviously had to say a few things to the investigator that had happened that I can't talk about. I said to her, I don't think I'm the person who should be, you know, getting investigated right now because X, Y, and Z has happened. But I'll pick, I think it was the 22nd of April I picked that date. Went along on the 22nd of April. I didn't have a clue like what to expect because I had no idea what I was supposed to have said. So when I actually went into the interview, I was quite anxious and tense. So she'd said to me, oh, you know, we're going to tease out what you've said throughout the interview. I'm like, look, could you just tell me now? Because I just, you know, I want to know what I've been accused of. Because the email actually gave me the opportunity, before telling me what I'd done, they gave me the opportunity to admit whether I had been offensive or not. But obviously I didn't know what I'd done to be offensive, so I couldn't admit or deny. So obviously I denied it anyway. And like I said, we got into the meeting. I'm like, could you just tell me what I'm supposed to have said? So we cut to the chase, and she said, did you say that only women have got vaginas? I was like, yes. What else? Can you see why that's offensive? I'm like, no, of course I can't see why that's offensive. Can you see why it's offensive? She, I'm not allowed to answer the questions. It's you that's got to answer the questions. And I think it was at that point, like in my brain, I was like, right, hang on, wait a minute. That's what she's saying is offensive. And I think that's where the penny started dropping, that this was what I was getting investigated for. And then she was like, oh, did you say that the difference between men and women is fact? And I was like, yes. Can you see why that's offensive? No. Did you say that not all men are rapists? Yes. Did you see why that's offensive? No. And obviously, did you say that men are stronger than women? Yes. Can you see why that's offensive? No. So yeah, at which point I came out of this meeting and I was like, that's crazy. Like I didn't, I thought I was going to lose my degree because I had stated fact. And so I contacted a friend who gave me the details of Free Speech Union, And I contacted them and I was like, look, I've been accused. I say accused, I've been accused of doing this, but I did do this. But I'm now getting punished for it. I could potentially lose my degree. I could get suspended, but because it's so late in the term, there was only 2 months left. I was doing my finals. Because it was so late in the term, they couldn't really suspend me. So it would have to be expulsion. And again, you'd still lose the degree. So I was going through like what could happen in my head. And the Free Speech Union, they were like, right, we'll sort it. And they did. They got in touch with Joanna Cherry and things, and we went down that route. And the complaint wasn't upheld, even though it was recorded. Now, I had pointed this out to the investigating officer. I had said to her, you know, you can go and listen to these recordings. I've admitted everything I've said. If you go and watch these recordings, because they were visual, if you go and watch these recordings, you'll see that I've not done anything offensive. I didn't understand why it was offensive. I still don't really understand why it's offensive, but I have more of an understanding now than what I did back then. So yeah, it was stressful. And I was homeschooling my 2 children at the time and studying my finals, doing my dissertation, exams, try to run the house. I had my other half working from home as well because we're in the midst of the pandemic. So things were like really tense and stressful. So I didn't sleep, I didn't eat. Well, I ate a wee bit to get through, but I wasn't sleeping. I was just kind of an autopilot. I was putting one foot in front of the other, just trying to get through the days. And the university, just to add a bit of insult to injury, on the day of my final exam, they decided to have a meeting about me, and I was not invited.
Who had the meeting that you weren't invited to?
Oh, it was another part of the disciplinary process. So I think the lecturers and stuff got together, and the panel and whatnot, they got together and they had a meeting about me. So I wasn't allowed to go, which I found quite unfair as well, because it was a stressful time. It was a really stressful time. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone either. If somebody says something you don't agree with, argue it out with them. Don't try and, you know, there's certain things I've read through the evidence and stuff, and it will all come out in the wash. But some of the things that were, you know, wished upon me and said were vile.
Well, I was going to ask you, so these people that said these vile things about you, what disciplinary action was taken against them? Because I'm quite sure that was offensive.
Oh, none, because they're victims. They were victims of my offensive thoughts and language.
We go back right to the beginning when the lecturer asked you to define what a woman was. What do you think her motives were around that?
Well, so she self-admittedly told me that she was a feminist, and I suppose, I know there's different strains of feminism. Maybe strains is the wrong word. There's different variations of feminism. Maybe she was just trying to sign me out and see if I slotted into hers. If, you know, I don't identify as a feminist purely because of what happened at university. I believe in women's rights. I believe in safeguarding children. My thoughts are essentially my own. I'm not in a box. I'm not in a labelled box where I have to agree with everything everyone else says. So for that reason, I don't class myself as a feminist. So I think she was probably trying to sign me out a little bit. And the typical stereotype, which I have learned since, is she had blue hair. Which she did. She had blue hair.
Did she offer you any support?
No.
At all afterwards? Or did
No.
she
There was a couple
chat to you about what had happened, or?
No, there was a couple of points where things got quite abusive towards me, and I suppose because she had no other option, she would jump in and say, oh, you know, we've been a little bit nasty to Lisa, or you know, things have got a little bit heated for poor Lisa today. Let's go a bit easier on her next time. But, you know, that was purely because she had to, because I don't believe for a second she wanted to.
Did any of the other students contact you privately, you know, for support? I'm guessing nobody did it publicly.
Well, the funny thing is, on Abertay's Oasis thing, you can go in and type in a student's name and it'll give you their email address. And there were 2 or 3 students, not from law, but I think there was 2 from biomedical science, and I can't remember where the other one was from. I think it was sociology, who reached out and sent me emails and just said, you know, we believe what you're doing is right. We believe that you've said nothing wrong. But that was as far as it went. They obviously, I understand why they didn't want to publicly agree with me. So yeah, one of my friends actually fell out with me over it. I told her what happened just before it went into the papers, and I spoke to her, and I was like, I'm getting in trouble for this. She's like, what did you say? And I was like, well, I said that only women have got vaginas. And she's like, oh, you can't say that because, that gender comes into it, and gender is a social construct. I was like, what does that mean? Because obviously at this point I'm still like dumb to it. And she's like, what do you mean? What does that mean? You should just know what it means. And we had a bit of a falling out, in all fairness. She later got pregnant, and I sent her a funny comment just telling her like, congratulations on the pregnancy, but any man can get pregnant, so it's nothing special. At which point she kind of understood where I was coming from, and kind of got back in touch for a wee bit. But yeah, I think she's more worried about being seen with me out in public. She doesn't want people to know that we're friends. So she did the whole sort of like, didn't want to be my friend on Facebook or any of that kind of thing. And we don't really speak much. I'll get the odd text, but that's how it
must
goes.
have felt quite isolated. It is sad.
Well, isolated, I would definitely say so. We were in the pandemic. We were locked in our houses as it was. My other half, he was fantastic, actually. He was a really good support for me. And he took some abuse off me. I was like a roller coaster. One minute I was like, in this sort of cloud, like, oh, nothing's going to happen, it's fine, everything's going to be fine. And then like reality would crash in, and I was like back down at the bottom, and I was just like going mental at him. And it was probably abuse what he was getting off me, like actual domestic abuse. I wasn't hitting him, but I was very verbal with him. And I'd sort of have these fits of rage at him, and I'm like, listen, you've got your career, and you're establishing what you do, and I'm losing all mine. And it was just a total roller coaster of a time for me. And he had to put up with me, the poor man, but he did it well.
So they have this meeting without you at it. What happens next after that?
What happened after that? I'm trying to think. I think that was one of the last meetings. I think I went into a meeting after that. I got to defend myself again. So when I went into that meeting, essentially they, just said that actually I don't think I can actually speak about what happened in the next meeting.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, they had that meeting without me, and I think there was a final meeting where I went in and sort of submitted my evidence to them, to a panel, and then we got the result a couple of days later.
Okay, and the result was, for people who don't know?
Well, they couldn't uphold the complaint against me. But apparently they didn't have enough evidence, which I'm totally perplexed at, because every single lecture was recorded. All the transcripts of everything that was typed into the text boxes, it was all there. So how, if I had been so offensive during class discussions, how there wasn't enough evidence to sort of do anything that's beyond me.
Do you think they were just trying to save face?
Yeah, I think if it hadn't gone so public, I think personally my thoughts are, if it hadn't gone public, that they would have reamed me behind the scenes. But because it went so public, I suppose they had to play things differently.
And do you know if it was one student, a group of students, the lecturer? Do you know who the complainants were? I
do know who the complainants were. There was about 8 or 9 of them. I probably can't say who. I can't say if the lecturer was one of them, but there was about 8 or 9 complainants against me.
And I suppose the reason you can't tell us about these things is because you've moved it on to a next stage, haven't you? So
yeah, so I'm suing the university now. It was a decision that I thought, you know what, if somebody doesn't stand up against a big organisation, then nobody will. And obviously I'm doing it. I don't have a job. I don't have like money. I'm doing it. I'm crowdfunding for it. We've got a court date for the 22nd of August coming up, where we are going to debate, and then it'll probably get moved on again. It'll probably drag on for quite some time. And I think these are things that would put most people off of going ahead. But at this point, I'd lost everything. They'd given me the law degree, but I'd been made pretty much unemployable. So I thought, well, you know what, they've done this to me. I've kind of been given this platform now, which I really didn't want, but I got it. So I thought, no, I'm gonna go after the university, and it's not for me. It's not about money. There's not actually a lot of money to be had doing this, but it's the only way that we can fight back. So I'm obviously suing them for stress and damages caused during the time of my exams. That's time I can't get back. That's time that my exams should have been my sole focus, and they obviously weren't. My grades were not what they should have been. Yeah, I managed to get through the degree, and I still managed to get the degree, but I could have done much better if I didn't have that looming over me. And hopefully now, these kind of things won't continue to happen if people continue to stand up against it.
I suppose as well, thinking about it, it must have really tainted the end of your, the degree for you, and and actually the ability to celebrate any of that success must have been lost, as well as all the stress that kind of goes with it.
Well, I was really looking forward to graduating, buying the big gown and making a day of it. Obviously, that was cancelled because of the pandemic. They had something online which I didn't attend. My actual in-person graduation is in 11 days on the 15th of July. And I'm the first person in my family that went to university. So this was a really big achievement for me to go to the Caird Hall, get presented my degree, wear the robes, and, have the beautiful photos and just have something to look back at. And, it's an achievement, and I deserve to be there. But I can't go because, I don't trust them. I don't want to be near the university. I don't want to be near the people in the university. I think if I was to go as well, there's that niggling thought at the back of my head. What if they make something up? What if they say that I said something that I didn't say? And then we're back to square one all over again. And it's a shame, but I mean, I've got no other option. So Glinner, Graham Linehan, he threw me like a little online ceremony, and it was lovely. It was lovely of him to do, but it's not the same as like going to your in person with your nearest and dearest and having that day. I'm seeing all the photos of people's daughters and sons and friends graduating. In fact, one of my friends just graduated as well, and there's that pang of jealousy because like I can't do it, and as much as I physically could, I can't. So yeah, it's a little bit. That's another reason I've been on social media a wee bit the past little while, because all the photos are just a wee bit depressing.
I can understand that they would be. I think as well, you can't underestimate how important it is for, if you're the first person in your family to have gone and got a degree and gone to university, and particularly if people's life chances around you are not as good as they are for some people. So you can't underestimate any of that, I don't think. And it's a shame that you're not able to participate in it. So, and you were saying there that you now feel that you're unemployable. I guess it's more than a feeling. I guess that's a reality actually for you.
Well, yeah, I have been told as much. I've got friends and whatnot that have got law firms who had as good as said, when you finish your degree, you can come in here, you can not do a traineeship. They didn't have the funds for that, but I could go in and get a little bit of experience there, do a bit of shadowing, and they had friends that could maybe, give me the traineeship and whatnot. So when I graduated, when I got my degree, I went to two of the sort of friends that I've got, and I had said to them, is there still a chance that you can take me into your office? And basically the comments from both of them were pretty much the same, different words, but identical meanings. We agree with what you said, but we can't employ you. We can't be seen to employ you because we can't publicly agree with what you said because it's not good for business.
And that is actually just shocking, isn't it? Absolutely shocking.
And it probably actually would be good for business because there's more people feel the same way as you do.
I think the problem you've got as well as the law firms that I was looking at are in Dundee, and obviously the university's in Dundee, and the university's kind of situated here, and the law firms are kind of all dotted around it. And even, trying to find a lawyer to represent the case was a wee bit tricky because some of them had gone to university there, and there was firms that had come back and said, it's conflict for us. But I found obviously MML, and they can't wait to get touring about this.
Well, we wish you every luck with that and hope they get torn in well.
Thank
with
you.
Yes.
it. Yeah. It just seems fantastical, doesn't it, that in this day and age that we're actually, that there are so many women who are in your situation where they're just cancelled for views that are actually, based in fact. Really, it's a really hard thing to get your head round.
Yeah, well, I remember just after it happened to me, and then obviously there was Rosie Kay. She lost our dance company, and then Kathleen Stock as well. And you've got, there's that many of them. I can't even remember all their names. They're just ones off the top of my head. But yeah, just because you
Gillian
leave.
Phillips.
Oh yeah, Gillian. I love Gillian. Actually, I met her in London. She's fantastic. I love Gillian. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy what happens because you dare not to lie. I teach my children, you don't lie. Like mum, the two things mum dislikes the most is liars and bullies. And you're not allowed to lie. You must always tell the truth because lies are very dangerous, and you're not allowed to bully because bullying's horrible. And essentially, we are now being promoted. Well, it's now being promoted that we lie and bully. If you don't lie to sort of make these people happy, then they are allowed to bully you.
Mm-hmm. So how are you managing now, having been kind of, on the other side of it in a different kind of phase of where you're at with it? How is it for you? Are you coping any better with it? Is it still a stress and a struggle? And
I think I'm more angry at the fact that I wasted all that time at university to have nothing, like not to be able to achieve anything from it. I do have that anger, and it drives me nuts. I was recognised this morning as well, which is ridiculous. I was dropping one of my little boys off at a summer camp thing, and the man at the door, he was like, "You're that girl from university, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Abertay," and I was like, "All right, yeah." He's like, "Oh, I was at Abertay when that happened, and I agree with everything you said." And I don't know, it's not the kind of thing that I really want to speak about, especially when my children are there, because I don't want this like on them. But I don't wish it didn't happen. Like, I'm glad it did because it opened my eyes to actually what's going on. And if I could reverse time back, I was asked this on Women's Hour, actually. They said to me, if you could go back in time and not say what you said, would you do that? And I was like, well, absolutely not. Like, I don't regret saying what I said because it's true.
mm-hmm. Well, I was going to ask you that question, so it's quite nice to know that I'm on a par with Women's Hour. Not really, but because there is that bit where I was wondering if if you were if looking back in time you would have gone on to wish that you hadn't actually done it. So it's good to hear that that's not the case. So Anna, you were about to say something.
I was just going to say, so you have people that recognise you in the street and say that they agree. It's just further proof that it's not the done deal that what you said was wrong. It was Joe Public thinks that.
I think, the problem you've got is universities are now places where you just, they've got like safe spaces and things like that. I don't really believe in safe spaces. I think if you've got an opinion and because the thing is, I didn't go into this class and like throw my opinion on people. This is the whole thing. I was actually asked my opinion. So like, if somebody asks me my opinion, I shouldn't have to, if it's different to somebody else, to say no. But I actually have got a friend now who works in, I think it's a law type place, and she can't speak to other people because they'll sit and talk about certain things and like the trans stuff, and she's got to sit there and bite her tongue because she knows if she doesn't, she's going to lose her job. And I just don't think that's fair. And I just think we've got like all these university graduates, and in law you should know fact from fiction. You're taught to know fact from fiction. But exactly. For me, you've got all these students, and I think without sounding like old, they've never had no said to them before. They're just entitled, privileged people, and they want to be a bit different. When I was young, we had goths, moshers, punks, and emos, and things like that, and that's all that's going on now. The only thing is, it's so much more dangerous because we've actually got surgeons willing to chop healthy body parts off of young children.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the really concerning thing about it all, isn't it? Well, we're just about coming to the end, Lisa. Is there anything that you would like to say in kind of summing up of your circumstances and situation?
If you don't mind, I could plug the fundraiser.
Of course, of course.
So yeah, I am fundraising for the case against Abertay. Hopefully after the 22nd of August, I can release more details about what's going on in the case, and they'll be in the sort of court for people to read anyway, for the public to read. But yeah, so we're fundraising just now, and you can fundraise by going to lisakeogh.uk. That's lisakeogh.uk. The website should be up and running. We accept all cards and things now. I think it's just been updated. I've got a lovely woman who does a lot of stuff for women who's running it for me. So yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, what we can do as well is put the link into the information about the podcast as well. So that would be good. You got any final questions, Anna?
No final questions, just to say thank you for being brave and taking up the fight.
Thank you.
Indeed. And when you win your case, because we're very confident that you will you come back and talk to us and tell us what that experience was like, and how you and maybe, looking forward to kind of new chapter in your life that's not got this in the background for you.
Yeah, that's fine. Of course I will.
That'd be brilliant. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we will see you soon, and all the best of luck with your case as well, and your fundraiser too. Thanks then.